photographing hares on Havergate Island on the Suffolk coast.
In this video I'm looking at photographing hares, and I'm on Havergate Island on the Suffolk coast. I've come on a trip with the RSPB. They do photographic days here at the weekend where they'll actually take a small group of photographers there and land you on the island, and you get about 5 hours there. And here photographing the hares is a bit of a challenge, but you do occasionally find some that are very confiding. In fact, they're so confiding, it's amazing how close you can get. What I've actually been using today is the 150 to 400, but some of the other photographers are using even shorter lenses than that. Some hares here are very skittish, but some you can find and get very close to, and there's one in particular we found today, and it's amazing how close it'll actually let you get.
Havergate Island is an RSPB reserve on the Suffolk coast. You catch the boat to the island from Orford Quay, and it's a short 15-minute boat trip to the landing jetty. You will find information about the photography days if you Google RSPB Havergate Island Photography Days. It costs £75 for the day, and although this may seem expensive, the numbers for each visit are limited to only 8 photographers. This means that places go quite quickly, so you need to keep an eye on the website to book up early. One big advantage of only having 8 people on the island at a time is that you do not get in each other's way, and it also ensures there is no disturbance to the hares. The RSPB will have one of their wardens or volunteers on the trip, and they keep an eye on things and will point you in the right area where you are more likely to see the hares. Although it's possible to see hares all over the island, the areas where they are most often seen is the areas of gorse bushes near the RSPB wardens' huts.
So one of the problems that we've had today is the wind, and when it's windy like this, the hares tend to hunker down. They're not as active as they normally are, and they've been hiding up amongst the gorse. When you find one that's approachable, that's not a problem, but actually getting shots of them out in the open has been very difficult today. You pick the boat up to come to Havergate Island from Orford Quay, and it takes about 15 minutes from the mainland to land on the island. There are a number of hides on the island for bird photography. There's about 5, and most of them have lagoons in front of them. I haven't actually been in the hides today. The hares is what I'm concentrating on, and certainly I've got some quite nice footage, some which I've shot at normal speed, some that I've shot at slow motion, and certainly a lot of good stills. But there's one particular hare that we've had a lot of success with, but it tends to sort of hunker down. While we were photographing this fairly tame hare, we were standing next to a gorse bush. There was 3 of us photographers there, and all of a sudden a hare came out of the gorse bush that we were actually standing next to. It came out and had a stretch, and literally 2 of the photographers who were there could have actually reached their hand out and touched it. And it had a good stretch, went back into the gorse bush, and it sat there out of the wind, and did actually see it through the gorse, and I managed to get a shot just using the 150 to 400, just zooming in on the hare's eye. But when you're coming here to do this sort of photography, it's basically stalking. You have to walk around slowly. When you see a hare up ahead, don't try and get too close to it too quickly. Take a few shots, let it get used to you, move a little bit closer until you're within range to get a decent image size. It's been fairly productive today. The light's been quite overcast and quite soft, but actually that's not too much of a problem. But certainly in these sort of situations, this 150 to 400 has been ideal.
So now I'm going to show some of the footage that I took. All of the videos were taken using the OM1 and shot at 120 frames per second, which is 5 times slower than normal speed. For this I used shutter priority, and I set the shutter speed at 250th of a second, which is roughly double the frame rate. I used the shutter button to get the hare in focus, and when the autofocus had locked on, I then pressed the red record button. Because you must manually focus when shooting in slow motion, if the hare moves either towards or away from me, the camera will not hold focus. Manually focusing on a moving subject is not easy, but fortunately the hares were fairly stationary, so that was not a problem. With this clip, the hare stood up and had a stretch, and then sat down again. You can see that when they stretch, they really do arch their back. Because I wanted to be fairly mobile for stills photography, I had opted not to use a tripod. Whilst hand holding is fine for stills, I regretted the decision when it came to shooting video, and I much prefer to shoot video on a tripod. For these clips, I was resting the OM1 on the 150-400mm lens on my camera bag, and that gave a reasonably steady support. So now we're going to look at some of the stills. So when you see a hare, you have to make a very slow approach. So take a few pictures and then wait a bit and then move a little bit closer. Then take a few more shots and move closer again. The hares are more likely to accept you if you take a slow and careful approach. This first shot was taken at the 400mm end of the zoom, but with a slow and careful approach I was able to get a lot closer to the hare and fill the frame quite easily. Because the day was quite cloudy, I was having to shoot at ISOs between 1600 and 2000. I find that even at these ISOs there is virtually no digital noise on the OM1 files. Because all the stills are taken handheld, that gave me the freedom to move to different positions, allowing me to have different viewpoints. Also, shooting in both landscape and portrait format gave me the option at a later date of which format I thought worked best. This shot of the hare cleaning itself was taken whilst sitting on the ground with the camera and lens on my camera bag. This image was taken with the 9-18mm lens, so it's a wide angle view and gives the appearance that the hare is a long way away. In truth, it was well within range of the 400mm end of my lens, as can be seen by the view on the back of the camera. This shot was another time when the hare stood up and stretched itself, but unfortunately it was partly obscured by the gorse bush. While walking along one of the pathways, I saw a hare run out across the marsh. Initially it ran away from me, but before disappearing back into the gorse, it stopped and looked back at me. Although it was a distance away, being able to engage the 1.25 extender with the flick of a switch gave me that extra bit of focal length to get this shot. The boat collected us from the island at 1 o'clock, so I had roughly 5.5 hours on the island. If you enjoyed the video and found it helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel to be notified of future uploads. Thanks for watching.